Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ned Belvance, Ned1313 on Twitter, and welcome to the Daily Check-In for June 29th, 2020. It is Professional Development Monday, and you may have noticed that I've updated the banner for the channel a little bit, going for trying to update the look and feel a little bit. Now that I'm pretty consistently doing this, I thought I should probably dive into the world of YouTube and figure out, hey, what are the things that I should be doing to try to get some more visibility for this channel and for the work that I'm doing here. So hopefully you like the new banner. Let me know if you don't, or let me know if you do. Either way, that's fine. Other housekeeping items. I don't have much. I am going to be going on vacation for a few days this coming week. It is 4th of July weekend. I'm going to celebrate that. So I'm going to pre-record Thursday and Friday's videos. So they will not be live streamed, but they will be interesting. Again, I'm going to be covering Edge on Thursday and Vault on Friday. So that is always exciting. And Monday, I will be back in the saddle for another professional development one. The topic for today is professional development and my own personal professional development, because I've been wanting to get into a little more software development for a while, and I needed something to kind of push me in that direction. And I made a couple videos about, should I be a developer? Should I learn developer things? So I will add those as annotations to this video. But with that in mind, I am going to take on a new project. So I'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I want to check in with you. How's your weekend? How you doing? Things going all right? Did you do anything exciting? Were you able to go out safely? Did you make anything cool at home? I just pickled some stuff. That's always fun. So now I have pickles for weeks. So let me know what you've been up to. Let me know how you're doing. You can leave something in the comments, or reach out to me, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's always good to hear from the audience and just get a grasp on what you're doing and what's of interest to you. So that out of the way, let me talk a little bit about the project that I'm thinking about doing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding it. So my idea here is I want to learn how to develop some software, an application. And I was trying to think of things that I would want to develop software application for. And I don't want to just do the Hello World example, because that's not very exciting, obviously. And I don't want to write something that I'll never use, because then I won't maintain it and I won't stay entrenched in it. So I need to write something that I can use, and that's a little more than just the basic Hello World. And I want to tie it into the cloud, because I'm Ned in the cloud. I want to do cloudy things. So what are some cool things happening in the cloud that I could take advantage of? Now, obviously, my mind might go to Kubernetes, but that seems like maybe I'm biting off too much on trying to do Kubernetes. So let's back it up and maybe go with something a little bit simpler, well, somewhat simpler, serverless. So why don't I develop a serverless application to do something, and I can integrate some other cloud services with that? Okay, so that's what I want to do. Now, what should this program do? What should this application do? Well, one of the things that I take advantage of is Zapier, or however you say it, Zapier. I use their free tier to do a few automations, but you can only have 5 zaps in the free tier. And a zap is simply, if something happens, do something. It's like, if this, then that, basically. I have 5 zaps. I'm at the maximum. I would like to do more, but their paid tier it goes up quick. Like, it goes from free to expensive. There's no like economy tier where maybe you get 10 zaps or something. That's what I would want. But what if I could build something very similar to what Zapier does, which is wait for a trigger and then do something? That sounds like a serverless function. Okay, so I could write that. I can map out some use cases. What do I want the input to be? What's the trigger for something to happen? And then what do I want the outcome to be? What is it going to do? And I can abstract that a little bit. Inputs could be a timer. I want this thing to happen every day at this time. Okay, so that's one type of trigger, and that's something that already exists within Azure Functions. So I might use Azure Functions because I already have the MVP credits, so it's essentially free to me. So Azure Functions, they have a timer function, which means you basically set up in cron syntax when you want this thing to fire off. Okay, so that's one option. And then I would also maybe want to accept input from other common applications I use. So Feedly, for instance, is something that I use to manage all my RSS feeds. Or podcasts. Podcasts also have an RSS feed. Maybe I want to consume an RSS feed And when a certain thing happens with that RSS feed, it's triggered. I could also have a situation where one application calls another based off of something. Okay, so now I'm sort of building this mental model in my head. And what components am I going to use? Well, I'm going to use Azure Functions because, like I said, I kind of get free credits from Microsoft being in the MVP program, so I can use Azure Functions to build out some of this. Now, I may want to store information. Where can I store information? Well, I don't need it to be highly structured. I don't need a database. I don't need to run like Azure SQL or anything. I can just use table storage in Azure Storage to store certain settings. So maybe one of the things is I want to look and see if there's a new episode of this podcast or this YouTube channel. And when that happens, I want it to create some posts in Buffer. Okay, that's a workflow I already have in Zapier. So let's see if I can recreate that. Now, there's some metadata, there's some information in there about how I want to generate that post. First of all, I need to figure out when it happens. I need to figure out what metadata I want to pull out of that post and publish in the new Buffer post. And I might want to get an icon, and then maybe I want to republish it after a certain amount of time. And then I want to mark that that has occurred. I have created a new post, and the next time this thing runs, it won't recreate that same post because it can look in the table and say, oh, there's already a post for that particular new blog entry or podcast episode, so I'm not going to redo it. Okay, that all makes sense. So I need table storage and I need to use Azure Functions. Now, the next big question is, what am I going to use to program this? Now, the programming language that I am most familiar with is PowerShell. And I could probably write this in PowerShell. Azure Functions has a PowerShell option, so I can absolutely run the whole thing in PowerShell. But that's not really learning anything new. That's not exciting. So instead, I'm going to write it in Python. And the reason I'm going to do that is I've dabbled in Python before, so it's not totally unfamiliar to me. Everyone keeps saying if you're an infrastructure person, you should learn Python. And I think I've mentioned that in previous videos. So that also makes sense. And I did a little digging, and Python already has a bunch of libraries or modules or whatever they call it for the things that I want to do. So if I want to parse an RSS feed, there's already a whole library to do that. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel here. And Python is one of the supported libraries for Azure Functions. Now, I could go down the JavaScript route, and I've tried to use JavaScript in the past, and I find the language very confusing. It doesn't gel with me quickly. Python, because it has a scripting type feel to it, I feel much more comfortable with Python. So that's, one for Python. I could write it in an actual, well, I won't say a different program. I could use C#, but the last time I wrote C# was in 2006 when I was a senior in college. So that seems unlikely as well. Other options, I could write it in Go, but again, the lift for that seems a little high. Go's a little more complicated. So I think Python's really the best way to go with it. So what's my plan? What am I going to do? How does this relate to this channel? Well, I'm going to start this process. I am working through a learning Python program now that someone posted online, and it's really robust. It really gets you down into the guts and has you writing programs. So I'm starting to work through that. So I'm going to track my progress on that by checking in, every other week or so, how I'm doing with this Python project. I'm going to publish the code on GitHub as I work through it, so you can see my progress there, trying to keep myself honest here. And I will make occasional updates on the podcast, whether it's a housekeeping item or devoting a whole episode to talk about how I'm doing in this new project that I've made for myself and any advancements. So I'm going to start out with like a minimum viable product, and then I'm just going to try to expand it out from there and maybe build out a whole platform where I have all the necessary abstractions, and I'm basically rebuilding the Zapier platform, but for myself. And since it's going to be in GitHub and open source, if you want to build it yourself, you can. So those are my thoughts. That's the project I've laid out for myself. It's obviously going to be some significant amount of work, but it's really going to teach me Python. It's really going to teach me some software development stuff and get me deeper into Azure Functions and serverless. So I think all of those things are good, and all of those things are going to help me just be better at technology. So that's my plan. I hope you'll follow me along this journey, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, any comments you have or suggestions as I'm moving down this path. Tomorrow is Terraform Tuesday, so that's something to look forward to. Until then, Stay healthy and stay safe, everybody. Thanks.